For today's video, I want to break down how canister filters work in a simple, beginner-friendly way. If you're new to the hobby and thinking about getting yourself a canister filter for your aquarium, this should help you decide whether it's the right choice for you. So let's jump into the video, and there's two main types of canister filters on the market today. First, you've got the traditional canister filters like my Fluval FX2, which are larger, more expensive and can hold more filter media. Then there's the smaller, more affordable hang-on-back canister filters, but despite their size, these are surprisingly efficient and perform very well. The one I'm using here is the AllPondSolutions HOB 500, and it's sold under the Sun branding in North America, but brands like Haiger and a few others have their own versions too. Overall, both types of canister filter operate in a very similar way, so most of what I cover in this video will apply to both options. So moving on, and I want to quickly go over how a canister filter actually works, because there's two key features that can affect how you set up your specific model. So water is drawn in through the intake and directed into the actual canister through the intake tube. Depending on the design, some intake tubes will release water at the top of the canister, while others will deliver it straight to the bottom. This creates two different flow paths, top to bottom and bottom to top, and the direction of the flow in your canister will determine how you arrange your filter media, but I'll go into that in more detail in the next section. Then we have the Fluval FX series, which is actually unique because it uses both an inner and outer filtration chamber in its canister. Water first enters the bottom and flows up through the outer media, then switches direction and flows from top to bottom through the inner chamber. Your filter's manual or the manufacturer's website should specify the actual direction of flow in your canister filter to help you arrange your media correctly. Once water is inside the main body of the canister filter, it passes through your filter media, which removes debris, impurities and various chemical compounds. The water then exits through the outflow tube, returning clean water to your aquarium. Some canister filters come with adjustable flow nozzles like this one, while others have a fixed design. Another important detail to check in your manual is how the filter allows you to adjust your water flow. Depending on the specific type of canister filter you have, you may need to adjust your flow from either the intake or outflow side of the canister filter, and doing it incorrectly may damage your motor. For example, with the Fluval FX series, you adjust flow using the red lever on the outflow valve while keeping the intake valve fully open. So moving on, and we get to the actual media types that we can use in a canister filter, and this is one of the biggest advantages because of the sheer amount and variety of filter media you can use at the same time. All the space inside of the canister is fully customizable to suit the needs of your specific aquarium setup. As I mentioned earlier, most canister filters either flow from top to bottom or bottom to top. Now this flow direction will determine how you should arrange the media in your canister filter. This standard order of filtration is mechanical first, then biological, and then finally, if needed, chemical filtration. But if you have a bottom to top filter, you'll reverse that filtration order of your media. Personally, I use the Fluval FX series, which has a lot of space available. Because costs can go through the roof with certain media types, I personally choose to fill mine with very affordable 30 ppi foam, which acts as both mechanical and biological filtration when used in very large amounts like this. In my experience, it works incredibly well, and it's far more cost effective than many other filter media options on the market. I do have a separate video explaining why I think that 30 ppi foam is the best choice, and I link that in the description. But I do want to quickly cover the different types of media that you may use in your canister. For mechanical filtration, most people use filter floss to trap fine particles and help keep the water crystal clear. When it comes to biological filtration, there's a lot of options on the market these days, ranging from hummus to sintered glass to ceramic media and the 30 ppi foam that I mentioned earlier. Now you can use whatever you like, but the 30 ppi foam is very budget friendly, easy to clean and offers a ton of surface area for beneficial bacteria to break down ammonia and nitrite, which are the two most toxic compounds in your tank. In my experience, many of the more expensive biological media options on the market are harder to clean and often clog up over time and can reduce their effectiveness. Some of these even claim to reduce nitrate levels in your tank due to their porous structure, but I would be cautious about those claims. While one study has found that pumice used as a substrate can reduce nitrate levels in an aquarium, I've never seen any convincing evidence that it actually works when placed inside of a filter. This is because nitrate-removing bacteria thrive in low oxygen environments, and canister filters are constantly pumping high amounts of water with high levels of dissolved oxygen in it constantly through the media. Also, if you're keeping planted tanks like I do, nitrate is basically seen as plant food, so you want it in the tank for your plants. Thankfully, nitrate is far less harmful than ammonia or nitrite, and most planted tanks actually benefit from having some nitrates in the water. Finally, we have chemical filtration, and this one is optional and often unnecessary for a lot of fish tanks, so don't go buying stuff you don't need. The only chemical media that I personally have experience with is Purigen, as it's a great option for removing tannins and clearing up brown water caused by driftwood or botanicals. There are a few other options out there too, like activated carbon or phosphate removing pads and a few others, but as I mentioned earlier, chemical media is usually used for very specific situations. The two main takeaways here are: first, canister filters give you a lot of flexibility with the type and amount of media that you can use. And second is that for most people, I honestly do think that the very budget-friendly 30 ppi foam will be more than enough for your canister filter. In fact, both Fluval and Oase, two of the largest canister filter brands in the hobby, actually got some criticism from the community when they released their current generation of canister filters, which primarily used foam for biological filtration media. But over time, people have realised how effective and easy to clean this is, and it is starting to win over a lot of people in the community. I also want to quickly touch on the actual noise levels of canister filters, because this is something that a lot of people are concerned about. When both set up correctly and maintained regularly, a good canister filter should be very quiet and almost silent. I sit a couple of meters away from my Fluval FX2 when I'm working, and it's never caused me any issues at all because of its noise level. If your canister filter does start making noise, it's usually a sign that the filter media is starting to get clogged and restricting water flow. Thankfully, a simple cleaning will usually fix this and remove the obstruction and let the water flow through the canister and remove the noise. Next, I want to talk about water flow, which is another area where canister filters really shine. In most cases, canister filters can provide far more flow compared to other filter types, which can be a big advantage depending on the type of aquarium you run. That said, don't feel like you need a canister filter just because you want more flow in your tank. In my opinion, most planted low-tech setups really don't require nearly as much flow as the high-end aquascape tanks, because we just run totally different systems. And even then, if you do need more flow in your tank, there are other options such as using more affordable filters along with a power head which will generate the flow in your tank. Now, as I mentioned earlier, how you actually control the flow on your specific canister filter depends on the model you are using. With the Fluval FX series, you are meant to adjust the flow using the outflow valve and leaving the inlet valve completely open so the motor doesn't burn out. On top of this, a lot of canister filters also feature fully adjustable outflow nozzles, letting you direct the water exactly where you want it in your specific aquarium. But if you're running a high-tech tank with CO2 injection and you want your water flow to help get the CO2 and any dosed nutrients around the tank, aim it towards your CO2 outlet. The majority of canister filters on the market now also have additional, often aftermarket spray bar attachments that you can get if you like. I don't personally use one of these myself, but this is another great option for reducing the flow intensity, making your canister filter ideal for fish that prefer calmer water movement. Depending on the specific canister filter model you choose, you may get a spray bar included with it, but a lot of them do offer the spray bar as an aftermarket purchase. So moving on, and we get to the actual price of canister filters, because there is an absolutely huge range on the market these days in both cost and the features they offer. At the high end, you've got the premium options like the Oase Biomaster Thermo series, and on the budget side, there's brands like AllPondSolutions and Sun, which white label the exact same products depending on the continent, and then you have the Fluval canister filters somewhere in the middle. Now, I completely understand why so many aquascapers opt for the more expensive Oase Biomaster Thermo range for their type of tank. This is because that specific canister filter has a heater compartment, so you can remove the heater from your actual aquarium and hide it in your filter, still warming your tank, but removing the distracting heater element from your tank that may catch the eye and ruin your aquascape. But for the average person who really isn't focusing on aquascaping or aesthetics, this really isn't needed, and I do think that one of the more affordable filter options would be better. Now, some people do look down on the budget canister filters on the market, such as the ones that AllPondSolutions and Sun sell, just because of their price. One of my friends runs one of the AllPondSolutions canister filters on his large pearl gourami tank, and he's had it set up for years without a single issue. And the only real difference other than the price is that it is a little bit louder than my Fluval FX2. As I mentioned earlier in the video, there's also a lot of compact hang-on back canister filters on the market these days too. These tend to offer solid performance at a far lower price tag than traditional canister filters, making them a great option for smaller tanks or tighter budgets. So regardless of the actual aquarium you're keeping or how much you have to spend, I'm pretty sure there is a canister filter on the market that will meet your needs. Next up, I want to talk about canister filter maintenance, because in my opinion, this is one of the biggest drawbacks of using a canister filter. Compared to all of the other filter types that I've tried on my aquariums, it's definitely one of the more time-consuming and involved filters to clean. Unlike sponge filters, internal filters, or hang-on back spillway filters, maintaining canister filters means going through several steps every single time. All of the locking nuts on the top of the canister need to be undone to give you access, and then, depending on the size, you may need to drain some of the water out of it, then remove and rinse the actual filter media you've chose before putting everything back together, and it just all adds up and becomes really monotonous. Now, the process really isn't difficult, it's just one of those things that just takes a lot of time to do it correctly, and that's what puts a lot of people off doing it. The problem is that, just like all other types of filter in the hobby, if you neglect maintenance for too long, you will start to have problems in your tank. For example, in my 40-gallon tank, I've noticed that if I don't clean the canister every month or two, phosphate levels start to climb because of the detritus decaying in the filter, and that results in algae quickly starting to grow in the aquarium. So while canister filters are more powerful and flexible, it is important to stay on top of your maintenance, so if you're looking for something that's quick and easy to maintain, then one of the other more popular types of filter in the hobby is probably a better option. So to wrap up the video, I want to talk about when it actually makes sense to use a canister filter instead of one of the other options on the market. In my opinion, canister filters are an excellent choice for larger tanks, heavily stocked aquariums, or aquascaped aquariums where you want to keep equipment out of sight. Most canister filters are also a great option for anyone who's intentionally looking to overfilter their tank or use a lot of mechanical and chemical media in their setup along with biological media. Personally, I've never had an issue with ammonia or nitrite spikes in my 40-gallon tank that runs my Fluval FX2, but it's definitely very overfiltered compared to what this tank needs. That said, it's also important to be realistic about what you actually need to keep your specific aquarium safe. One of my friends maintains a fully cycled 300 litre or 80 US gallon tank using nothing but the largest Seachem tidal hang-on back filter on the market. Not only does this work out to be significantly cheaper than a lot of canister filter options, but because it's a regular hang-on back filter, it's also a lot easier to maintain, and like I mentioned, he's never had an issue with his ammonia or nitrite levels since this cycle completed. So while canister filters can be a fantastic option in the right situation, I do think a lot of people end up spending a lot more money than they actually need just to get a canister filter, when in a lot of different situations, a hang-on back or a sponge filter will usually get the job done. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end, and I hope it's been helpful. Thanks for watching, have a good day and good luck with your new filter.